You've got questions, we've got answers. Welcome to the Therapist Question Box, where trauma-trained therapists tackle real questions from real people. I'm your host, Lindsay Schiss, bringing you grounded insights you can actually use, brought to you by Therapy Utah. Back to another episode of the Therapist Question Box. We are here to answer your mental health questions that are plaguing you. So write us, let us know what's on your mind, and we will interview one of our awesome therapists to talk about your question. So today I have with me Harris Moriarty. Harris, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Harris is a new therapist here at Therapy Utah. Mm-hmm. And so Harris, and first time on the podcast.
First time.
Right? So tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So I'm originally from the East Coast. My wife and my kids and I have just kind of gradually found our way out here to Utah. I've been around. Lived in a lot of different places, worked in a lot of different places. But I come from an educational background, so I've spent a lot of time as a teacher, as an athletics coach, things like that. So I'm really excited about developing my career in counseling, and I think with a particular emphasis in working with adolescents.
Nice.
Yeah. Gosh,
there's such a need. I'm really happy to hear that you're interested in that. That's awesome. Which is really why we talked to you about doing this listener question about teenagers and helping teenagers. And as we all know, teenagers are really fun. And I hesitated a little bit because we all know that maybe fun's not the first word as a parent. But
I was a teenager. I totally understand where you're coming from. I was very fun.
Fun, quote, fun, right? But, I think that we know there's complexities with teenagers. And I think most parents want to have a better experience, or at least a good experience than what they're having. But it's new navigation. I know for me, when I had teenagers, and I still have teenagers, it was shocking to go from I was the best thing ever, and they were waiting while I was going to the bathroom, to I couldn't chew right or breathe right. I mean, that's what it felt like. Like it was this extreme change of, gosh, they hate me and I haven't changed. I haven't done anything. What happened, But recognizing now, that's part of the deal.
Yeah.
But as a parent, this is a parent that wrote in about their teenager, and I just think we need help. We need help understanding this. So Yes, Harris.
That's right.
I apologize. We need your expertise. As a teacher, we need to understand a little bit more. So maybe you can help us here. So here's the question.
Okay.
How do I help my teenager become more resilient without pushing them too hard or damaging our relationship? So let's just, before you answer that question, I love the honesty of this listener, because I think we all as parents say, oh, we want our kids to be resilient. Now, I don't know that we all want to do the things that help our kids be resilient. So take it away. Give me your thoughts on that question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you, listener, for asking that question. I think it's really important. When you look back at the last century, I think people have a lot of these paragons of what family life used to be, right? Like father and son used to do all these things together, and mother and daughter doing all these things together. And the truth is that that's not the world that we're in, for better and for worse, right? I think that there's, girls didn't play sports 100 years ago. And I think it's amazing that my daughter was at rugby practice yesterday. It's just so great. I was talking with the coach. I'm like, I can't wait until she learns how to lower her shoulder. And isn't that amazing? And it brings a lot of excitement to me as a father. And that wasn't the case before. But if you look back, what did you see, right? You saw mothers and daughters in the home a lot. And what happened in those situations, right? You have mom telling a lot of stories about her own life to her daughter. Well, what about father and son? Right? You got the classic father and son fishing trip where dad's telling stories, and somebody pops the hood of the hot rod in their garage, and all the dads and boys are down the street, and they're all watching somebody tinker on the car, and they're trading stories. Maybe there's a lot about that society that we were happy to have left behind. But there are a few aspects to those social institutions that we've lost. I know that one of the things I love about being in Utah is nothing happens on Sundays. Nothing happens on Sundays. It's my favorite thing in the whole world. I go out of my way to make sure that nothing gets scheduled on Sundays. When I was growing up, I had swim meets, I had basketball games. There was always somebody having a party. Sunday was just another day of the week. And what I have found personally in my life here in Utah is that I get to spend the day with my kids. Now, my kids are a little bit younger. I don't have adolescents yet. But some people say that ages 3 and 4 is like the toddler version of being teenagers. They start stamping their feet about things, and they start, looking for power and authority in the home. But one of the things that I get to do with those days is I get to be really involved in what they're doing that day. I got my oldest son like a carpenter kit. And so we built a birdhouse a little while ago. And it was just the two of us together, doing that together. And I realized that I didn't always have that when I was growing up. My friend invited me fishing a few weeks ago. I'd never been fishing in my entire life. And I remember...
Wait, you've never been fishing?
I went once. I did this. I went fly fishing and I caught a fish and it was amazing. I got a picture of it. It's a nice 16-inch brown trout. Super exciting.
But one time?
One time in my whole life until
a
few weeks ago. Yeah. And I called my dad afterwards and talked to him about it. And we had this really almost difficult conversation because my dad had always wanted to take me. And it just hadn't happened. And that was kind of tough for us to both kind of work through. But what I did remember is that my dad took me to football games during the fall, and he went to a college it was a couple hours away. So most Saturdays during the fall, I did get the 2-hour road trip down and the 4 or 5 hour experience at the game and the 2 hours back. And I remember those things. I remember those stories when my dad is telling me about girls he dated when he was growing up and what his experiences in school were, what his first jobs were like. I have all those memories. I have all of those stories. And so, I didn't go fishing. But the institution of fishing between father and son was really, it's a conduit for building that relationship so that when you are asking the question, how do I build resiliency in my child? What you really want to do is be able to share those experiences that you had where you learned how to be resilient. And you can't just have that conversation on the way home from school in the car. Or when they blow in the door with their backpack, they sling it on the couch and they're like, hey, is there any food or snacks or something like that? Or you get a call home from the teacher and it's like, hey, my son or daughter is having a little bit of trouble with some emotional regulation in the classroom. And you want to hang up the phone and immediately go tell your son or daughter hey, let's have a talk about this. Those situations tend to be a little bit more charged. What you need to have are these built-in times together where you are just doing something with them. And that's when a lot of times these stories about your life that you can share, or your son or daughter feeling secure in a moment to ask you your opinion about how to handle something, those situations where you're out of the house doing something that's dedicated for the relationship, not dedicated to having that conversation, but dedicated to these relationships that's consistent. That's where those times of comfort where you share that story or your son or daughter asks that question, that's where those things tend to happen. And we have to do some reclaiming of those times.
Yeah, I love that you were talking about that time is where it happens. It doesn't happen when things are charged, right? And we're like, hey, come on. Why are you acting that way? Let's teach you a lesson. Lessons aren't taught when things are really tough, right? That's when everyone is shut down, right? But lessons are taught when actually there's moments of connection, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes.
Is like that, those times, the football games, on the drive there and the drive home, when your dad could tell you stories about him and his life. That's where it happens, right? So
Exactly.
what I'm hearing you say is that the relationship is where a child can start to form resilience, because they start trusting a parent, right?
Yes.
And that we're looking to reclaim. I like that you said that, to reclaim the time that we're spending with our children. And that we're not saying this is where you build resilience. We build it. We don't build resilience again when things are hard. We build resilience when things are actually going okay.
Yeah.
Right. And when you were talking, I thought I actually love resilience. Like, I've researched resilience. I speak about resilience. I love the topic. And one of the things that I've read about is that when parents are seated next to a child, that's actually the time where they have the most opportunity to speak, because they're not facing them directly. So it's not as intimidating, but being next to them in the car. So as you're talking about being in the car with your dad, sitting to the side of him at a football game, like, there are actually physical moments to open up, as opposed to just he's coming to you in your bedroom saying, "Hey son, I want to talk to you about XYZ," right? But like, you're having normal, natural conversations. So I love that that reminder. So let's talk about this. I think, again, we want our children to be resilient, but we also don't want them to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So how do you find that line as a parent to not push too hard, but also to help them, find resilience?
Yeah. No, it's a difficult dichotomy to hold sometimes. Gosh, I have so many different memories of different things happening, right? My dad went to all my basketball games, and he was not the dad who was yelling at me, "Do this better, see that guy," whatever. That was my coach's job. My dad was there with me at the game. Right. And then when he would pick me up and drive me home, he wouldn't immediately jump in to, "Hey, so maybe we could talk about, how you're doing with defense," or like, "Hey, your jump shot's looking a little cockeyed." He would kind of wait for me to start talking about it. And then I would say, "Man, that guy was just blowing by me every single time. I just couldn't figure out how to like get in front of him and stop him from driving to the basket." And, my dad would say something like, "Well, what were you struggling with the most? Like, what was the hardest part?" It's like, "Well, I just couldn't seem to get position." And he was like, "Well, what do you think you were doing?" And so there's almost like a little bit of,
Sounds like a therapist.
it sounded like a little bit of a counseling session, right? Because if he had just come out and said like, "Well, your knees weren't bent and you weren't in good defensive posture, and so that's why that dude is blowing by you every time." If you just come out and said that, I mean, like, I just want you to listen to me, Dad. I don't want. But if you are actually leading some of these questions, and what it does, it's not fake, right? You're interested in your child becoming better at something, but you can't do it for him. And so you have to kind of start to understand what they think about what they're doing themselves. And it's only when you've kind of taken a dive into that with them that then they'll start saying stuff like, "I just don't know how to do that." And then that's the invitation to like, "Oh, okay, let's work with you on that then."
But I also want to say this, and I love that we're using your dad as an example here. Sounds like he did a great job. But that you and your dad had a relationship before that. So he had done work to build a relationship with you where you could have safety in saying, "Gosh, that guy kept blowing by me and I just couldn't keep up." Right?
Yeah.
Like, he had taken the time to do that. And so therefore you did feel comfortable enough to really tell him, like, "This is where I was weak. This is what didn't work for me." Whereas if the relationship wasn't there, that may have not been the case.
Yeah, yes. I think that's probably the hardest part about it in terms of, how do I start working on resiliency with my adolescent? It's that you actually can't go to the resiliency first.
That's right. Yeah.
You have to go to the relationship first. But to the prior question, right? This dichotomy of like, I don't want my kids to be uncomfortable, but I do want them to be able to do hard things. And I think at the core of that, I've had a little bit of a mantra: hard isn't bad. You know, just because something is hard doesn't mean that it's automatically bad. When we want to learn how to do something, anybody, when you think back about starting your career or something like that, you had to work hard. That wasn't bad. It meant that you were working towards becoming better at something, and you take a lot of pride in yourself when you know that you worked towards the achievement of certain skills, that you are more naturally able to accomplish certain things. You have a greater capacity to handle certain things because you did the hard work.
Okay. I'm going to push back on you on that because I agree with you 100% that when we get through something hard and get on the other side is when we go, oh, I did this and I made it through, and look what I accomplished and look what I overcame. But we live in a world that says hard is not okay. We don't do hard. We do convenience.
Yeah.
We do easy. We do make it happen now. So yes, but we are pushing against the world that we live in, right? I mean,
yeah, a little bit.
I mean, I think about DoorDash. It still is fascinating to me. And I'm also giving away my age here, that like you can put in your phone that you want something and someone just shows up with it at your door. That Walmart delivery comes and drops groceries off at my door. Like I still am amazed every time. Like this feels like magic. It's crazy because, you know, my growing up, it was like, hey, if I wanted to go and get something to eat, well, get in the car, go and get it. Because typically takeout was too expensive or delivery cost extra money. So you're going to go in the car and that felt like a real nicety to go out, which it was and is. But now we get it delivered to the convenience of our own home and we don't have to move a muscle, maybe our index finger or thumb to order. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, I absolutely see
So we're going against really what society is doing. And so as a parent, if I'm telling my kid, hey, no, this is good for you. Hard is good. This is what builds grit and determination. And then I have society saying, actually, easy is what we're after and easy is what we're going for. And so I love that you said relationship first, because otherwise that hard feels actually quite counter to what we're doing.
If you try to impose seemingly unnecessary, difficult measures on your adolescent and you have not built a relationship with them prior to that, it's not going to work, right? Because society is saying, like, why wouldn't we just make this easier? Let's put a smart board up there. You know, why don't we take notes on our iPad, stuff like that. Whereas I taught Algebra 2 for a number of years.
Bless you.
And I did not allow calculators in my classroom. And a lot of students and their parents, they freaked out the first couple of weeks. They're like, then how's my...
good reason. What about those of us that are not good at math? Come on, throw us a bone.
I'm of the mind that if you're going to go off and be a mathematician, right, you're going to use a calculator for things. But you're going to use a calculator for things that you understand. And your access to understanding the industry of mathematics is not going to be limited by your ability to use a calculator. And that's what I was seeing. I taught at a K through 12 school, and I had 1 year where I taught Algebra 2 and I taught 5th grade math. And I taught them back to back. And it was a very interesting experiment that I don't think that the school understood that I was putting on this experiment, but I just kind of wanted to see certain things. And what I found was that my 5th graders were more open to learning things than my sophomores and juniors who are in Algebra 2. Because when you're in 5th grade, your concept of what's easy and what's hard is pretty black and white. Either this is really easy for me or it's not. And the spectrum of like how much more difficult something might be, like that kind of doesn't exist. It's just either I have to do homework and that's hard and I don't want to, or I don't have any homework at all and that's easy and that's what I prefer. And what you have in a fifth grader is a higher capacity sometimes to just do hard things, because the authority structure for a fifth grader is that, well, when somebody tells me I have to do something, even if I don't want to do it and I think it's hard, I still have to. Whereas with a 16 or 17-year-old, they have a much more nuanced understanding of what they think they have to do and what they don't. And they have a much more nuanced understanding of different levels of hard. And one of the things I like to, what I would say to parents, I say, easy now, hard later, or hard now, easy later. And it's
that's so good.
In my experience,
Yep.
working hard to get a fifth grader to be able to do math without a calculator gave me a 16 or 17-year-old who I could give a calculator to, and they would only use it for when they actually needed it. As opposed to, I give the calculator to the fifth graders. Now I have 16 and 17-year-olds who need a calculator to do math. Even if they're not using it, just having it on the desk became like a security blanket. If I don't have access to that, then how am I going to do math? That like killed me as a math teacher. It's like, no, I want you to love math. I want you to have a relationship with math.
Oh, man.
I want you to know numbers and things
Harrison,
like this.
now you've gone too far.
No, maybe I've
I'm
gone
just
too
kidding.
far. No, but I grew to really love mathematics. But I think that a lot of these principles
Totally.
remain true. One of the things that I do a lot is I work with my toddlers on table manners. And I'm not like running a cotillion or something like that in my household. It's mostly just, can we not put our elbows in the salad on our plate? It's one can we just like not lean on the plate? Let's not put any of ourselves on the actual plate, and let's keep the utensils on the table instead of pointing with them. Like just basic things like that.
Yeah.
But it requires that I'm kind of on it a little bit. But where is that instruction coming from, right? And I think we're going to keep coming back to this over and over again, right? My children have an experience of me that is invested in their life beyond just being a disciplinarian.
That's right.
You know,
And here's the truth. What you said, I think, is so important. Easy now, hard later. And I can't emphasize that enough when it comes to relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth is, you're going to spend time now or later. And I will tell people this. Like, you get to spend time proactively working on relationship, spending the time, talking about table manners, going to the football games. Or you get to spend time cleaning it up later on when there isn't a relationship and you're spending time there. So you get to decide where you spend time, either proactively or reactively. And that's what I'm hearing you say. Like, why not invest on the front end where you can say, you know what, I am investing in you because I care about you. I'm your dad. This matters to me and you matter to me. And so then when it is a hard basketball game, you can have those conversations because you've spent the deliberate time in doing so.
Yeah.
And so the question to me arises is this, and again, having my own teenagers, is you walk this balance of like, they don't want me in their lives. And I'm kind of, in fact, I've heard it said that teenagers want you kind of like, they want a houseplant. Like they want you there, but they'd like you to just kind of be quiet and not say anything. But they kind of need you there. But really just kind of be inconspicuous and kind of like they're going to pass by you as if you don't really exist. And the truth is, I'm going to just be totally honest. For me as a mom, that was shockingly hard. My sense of my children needing me and wanting to be with me changed so drastically that was really challenging to feel like, gosh, they not only don't need me, but actually I don't even feel like they want me. Now, I now know like it wasn't that they didn't want me. This is their job of differentiating and pushing away from. So now I understand that. But from a personal perspective, that's pretty painful.
Yeah.
And so as a parent, what would you tell parents that are navigating this and saying, boy, this is painful. This is not like I expected when my kids were 4 years old and they think everything I do is awesome and funny and they wait for me at the bathroom door. Like this is literally the opposite. And so trying to, again, even have relationship, even if you have established a relationship when they're younger, that dynamic changes profoundly when they're older.
Yeah. I have a lot of compassion for that. Absolutely. I think it's a very real experience. And, it's funny. We're talking about adolescence, so it's hard to not think about myself when I was an adolescent and the experiences that I went through. Yeah. And I would say post-college, I had a lot of really difficult interactions with my dad, and I would say I think he did a decent job. I still like the guy,
I hope.
Just on the phone with him earlier today. No, he's a good man. But one of the things that was very hard was I grew up and became a man, and I think it was hard for my parents to deal with that, right?
Sure.
Like what? Wait a second, this kid that we raised and that we did all this investment in and the education and the sports rides and all the, the different things, right? And all of a sudden he's just out and about. He doesn't want to live at home anymore. He wants to live in a different state. He wants to, do all these different things. And that was hard. And it would come out when I would be in a conversation with him and he would say, you should probably do this thing. And I was like, well, I don't think that that's what I should do. And I'm probably going to do something different. And the authority dynamic changes, right? Because it's not that I shouldn't listen to him or take his counsel, but that the authority of my life is really mine at that point when I'm 22, 23. And there's, for better or for worse, that can't be changed. I have to grow up. When they're 16, 17, they think that they're like 22, 23. That's right. Yep. And so you as the parent are trying to figure out, like, how do I handle this kid who thinks he can run his entire life, but literally doesn't have a bed to sleep in unless I go to work today. Mm-hmm. And I would say that it's hard, but you have to reframe your goal. What is the goal of parenting? I think we sometimes conflate the love that we have for our children and our commitment to raising these children and to being present to them. We conflate that with the goal, which is I want my son or daughter to grow up and be able to have a family of their own and to be able to build a career for themselves and to have agency. And for me as their parent to trust that their agency is formed well enough that they will make good decisions and that I don't have to be there for that. And what you have when they're 16, 17 and they're pushing back and you are stuck as the house plant in the corner, that you kind of get to observe and be like, okay, I've just put 15, 16 years of effort into this child. Where have I gone wrong?
Yeah, what happened?
What happened?
Holy cow.
And you don't look at it as like they're pushing back on you. That's not what you did wrong, right? And what you did wrong is going to be like way, way less than that. We're like, okay, so they're choosing to do things on their own now, and what I'm noticing is they're not handling, doing poorly on academic assessments very well. Right? I'm looking at them as they're living their life right now. And so that's something that I need to start thinking about. And the job of a parent of an older child is way less hands-on. That's right. Which is the harder part, but it just is. And once you kind of wrap your mind around that aspect of this new phase of parenting, take advantage of that. Take way more opportunity to just watch and enjoy them. And don't just look at the things that you failed at. Those are strong words. Take a look at the things that you succeeded in. They've got friends. They want to make decisions for themselves. You have to hem some of that stuff in, and maybe you're a little bit worried because they're not quite ready for certain things. But that's fine. The fact that you have a child that has grown up into being an adolescent that wants to make decisions for themselves, that's great.
Yeah, congratulations.
Well done.
Yeah, that's true.
Well done, good and faithful parent. Like that's what you want to see, and you have this opportunity to take in a lot more data because what they're doing is way more nuanced.
Yes, and I think what's really important is that if we tie our own worth with our children's behavior, then we're going to be in trouble. Bottom line, right? And so when we start to say, hey, you know what? That is actually the goal, is to raise independent thinking kids that actually can go into society and can thrive and flourish. And turns out that isn't with a parent.
Yeah.
Right? Darn it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the truth is that's what we want,
Right.
but it's challenging. So I love that you said, go back to the goal. Like, what is the goal at the end of the day? And the goal is we are hoping to raise independent, well-adjusted, respectful, responsible adults. And if that's, and that doesn't mean that it's not going to be uncomfortable in that process,
Absolutely.
right? So I appreciate that you said that really going back to what is our goal? What are we doing here? And recognizing, and guess what? Probably have some compassion on yourself, because when you do become the houseplant in the corner, you didn't anticipate that. It's something you've never done. It's uncomfortable, but recognizing that, at the end of the day, this is the goal. And it doesn't mean it's going to be really nice and cushy all the time, but that's what we're going for.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Excellent. I loved this conversation mainly because I'm in the throes of this. And it really is one of those conversations that I think we talk about resilience. We want to be resilient. We want resilient children, but we sometimes don't know how to do it. And I love I love so much this conversation, but that you said that resilience doesn't happen in the hard. Resilience happens in relationship.
Yeah.
And that is what needs to be deliberate, is that you're going back to time spent with children. I love the idea of the conversation with you and your dad, right? I remember learning about that and thinking, okay, I need to meet my kid where they're at. And I had a son, I still have a son, he's 19, but at the time he was 15 and he loved video games, and I hate video games, right? And they've been, and when I say hate, it's just this challenge, right? It's always been a challenge. But I read something that said, meet your kid where they're at. So if they love video games, then you learn video games. And I thought, oh man, here we go. And I really, really thought, I'm going to have to learn Minecraft. Like, I'm going to have to learn how to play freaking Minecraft. And you know what? I will tell you, 10 minutes of Minecraft made a huge difference.
And I wanted to bring back up what you said earlier, right? The psychological environment where you're sitting next to each other. Because what is that not? That's not a top-down authoritative relationship.
That's right.
And
in fact, I was far worse at Minecraft than he was. I mean, he was the expert, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what button is what? Absolutely.
One of the things that adolescents want is respect. When they're pushing back, a lot of times it's because they don't think that they have a space to be themselves or to have any control over their life. I used to do this thing when I was 16. I would have two options, and my parents would say, you should do this option, which was objectively the better option. And I would always choose the other one.
I was going to say, I already know where you were going with that.
And it's because I wanted to feel like I chose it.
You were independent.
Yeah. And when you're given, when a teenager is given two options, sometimes it's really important for you to not tell them which one is the better one. And you just kind of let it be. And then if they choose the wrong one, you're there to kind of clean up afterwards. I mean, if it's not like of the highest stakes ever, right? They make the wrong choice and maybe they're kind of upset about it. There might be an opportunity if you'd be like, I learned it the same way, man.
But that is where resilience is built.
Absolutely.
Is we let them fail, and then we become that soft place to land. Parents become that soft place to land when the stakes are not incredibly high.
And don't say, I told you so.
That's right.
Like if you saw your kid staying up every night for 4 nights straight and then they tanked their math exam, the first words out of your mouth were, I told you if you stayed up all night, you were going to, it's like, no, like they just learned a really important lesson about their own limitations. And what they actually need is either compassion because they're hurting. That's a really difficult thing to learn, that we're not invincible, that we're not limitless, which a lot of 16-year-olds think they are.
That's right.
When they come up to that limit, it can be a rough landing. And if you have an opportunity to share about your own occasions of having your own rough landings on discovering your limitations, that means everything, right? Because what does that do? It respects their experience of it.
Yes.
It's not that they're wrong or that you weren't right. You were, and they were wrong and you were right. Everybody already knows that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, so does the 16-year-old, but if you want to have the conversation and have it trend into resiliency, make that an opportunity for them to grow with you in your relationship so that 10 years down the line, when they hit that tough patch, they don't think, my parents always knew I was going to be a failure. They told me this every time, and I'm 25 without an oar. They're going to say, no, when I was 16, I remember that conversation. This stinks. I'll get through it.
Yeah.
Just like I did that time.
Yep.
They might even call you and say, remember that time when I was 16 and failed that math exam? Well, I made the same mistake again. And you're like, yeah, when I had my first job and now you've got a relationship with an adult,
yep.
Which is what we all want, that's what we're going for. I think that's where resiliency is, right? It's in the relationship. It's in those shared experiences. And I think that, the uncomfortable part about your kids being teenagers is not just that they're not quite ready to be 25-year-olds because they're just 16, but that they are almost ready. They're almost about to go, and that's like scary.
Yep.
Yep. And we as parents have to acknowledge that.
Yes. We have to acknowledge it, and we have to allow for it. And we have to sit in the discomfort and watching them fall and trip, and we have to allow it, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's our own discomfort that we're like, no, we don't want them to feel uncomfortable. Oh, also, we don't want to feel uncomfortable with their discomfort, right? It's all of that. The truth is, life will teach our children lessons if we allow life to teach our children lessons. And if sometimes we just get out of the way, life will teach them lessons, and we just need to allow those lessons to happen, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to oversimplify it, but I do think sometimes we try to rescue, and it's, again, in a way we think it's helping, and we don't want them to hurt. But the truth is, actually, that's when relationship and trust and resiliency is built. So, Harris, what a great conversation. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate the things you talked about. So beneficial and valuable, because again, I think we want this, but we're not quite sure how to do it. So you gave us some really good ideas about understanding, the end in mind. What is our goal? I loved the idea of easy now, hard later. Such a great reminder. And that, again, think about the relationship. That's where resilience happens, is when we can teach, when we can be there for our children in relationship. And then when things get hard, they can draw on that relationship, that trust that's happened. So really appreciate that. For all of our listeners, we hope this was helpful. And I am so grateful for the listener that wrote this question in, because frankly, I learned from it for sure. And as I always do, but navigating teenagehood is no joke. And so I appreciate the thoughts that Harris shared, as well as the conversation that we've had today. So thank you. And if you like this, please like and subscribe and share this with a friend. And until next time, take care. That's a wrap for today on the Therapist Question Box. I'm Lindsay Schiss. Thanks for listening. And remember, every question you ask is an opportunity to learn and grow. Brought to you by Therapy Utah.
Hey, this is Kathy Kinghorn. I'm an owner at Therapy Utah. If you'd like to book with one of our trauma-trained therapists, go to www.therapyutah.org. Thanks for listening.